Good morning, Madam As. My name is Tanuja Kumaran and my metric number is 23 DBT 20 F1047 from DBT 4B. And today I'm going to present about ethical issues and public concerns on genetically modified organisms. So, what we think when mentioning about GMO, which stands genetically modified organism. A genetically modified organism is an animal, plant, or microbe whose DNA has been alternately altered using genetically engineering technique. For thousands of years, humans have used breeds method to modify organisms. Corn, cattle, and even dogs have been selectively bred over generations to have certain desired traits. Moreover, GMOs are created by adding a gene from unrelated species into a gene from an external source, such as viruses, bacteria, animals, or plants. Biotechnology has enabled us to bypass insurmountable psychological barriers and interchange genetic materials between all the living organisms. The application of recombined DNA technology has potential to allow the creation of a human designed organism. GMO refers to any food that contains or derived from a genetically alternate organism. Although describing biotechnology process is outside the scope of this work, it usually mentions some of the widely utilized ways in generating GM crops. Agrobacterium has been utilized as a bridge organism in the transfer of the desirable gene into plants. This has been a successful strategy for tree and gain crops alternation. Biolistic transformation is a physical process in which the desired genes are bombarded into plant cell using DNA coding beads as carriers. Electroporation is another technology that assists in the incorporation of gene into the host genome. This approach is appreciated for plants tissues that lack cell walls. DNA penetrates plant cells through a mini process produced temporarily by electromagnetic pulse. Microscopic crystallize can also from this hole microinjection, which is the directly delivered to the DNA into the genome, is another recent approach. Antisense technology is also beneficial of detecting sense specific genes such as those responsible for fruit softening and resistance to pathogen. In the past few decades, scientists have become increasingly able to directly modify the DNA of microorganisms, groups, and animals. Advances in biotechnology have allowed scientists to improve the genetic makeup of an organism without unwanted characteristic tagging along. The specific targeted modification of DNA using biotechnology has enabled scientists to avoid these problems. So next part is ethical issue and public concerns on related GMO. As the first, the genetically modified organism introduced into ecosystem could have unpredictable result. Next is claiming the patent right is another problem that has cropped up for genetically modified organisms which are created for meeting food and medical requirements. There is 27 variety of basmati are cultivated in India. This variety is known for this unique flavor and long grains. An American company crossbreed their semi-dwarf varieties with Indian basmati and climbed into to be a new variety. The company even got the patent rights for the new variety without any compensations to prospective country or the farmers. This is known as biopiracy. This would severely affect the biodiversity of the concerned area and harm the indigenous livelihoods. Next is the developing and undeveloped parts of the world such as India, America, Africa. etc., have traditional knowledge of their bioresources. On the contrary, the industrial developer nations have poor biodiversity, hence laws should be made by developing nations to prevent exploitations of their resources. An initiative was taken by the government is in this aspect by setting up the GEAC, which stands for Genetically Engineering Approval Committee under the Environmental Protection Act 1986. This body makes law and rules for the creation, use, import and export and storage genetically modified organisms. While the public concerns surrounding GM foods and crops commonly focus on human and environmental safety, labeling and consumer choice, intellectually property rights, ethics, foods and security and poverty reduction, and also environmental conservation. Next is GMO toxicity. After genetically modified food, we introduced into United States, and a few decades ago, people independently reported toxic effect caused by GMOs. One of the example is an anti-GMO advocacy group called the Institute of Responsible Technology, which stands for IRT, which reported that rat feed a diet containing a GMO potato as virtually every organ system adversely affected after just 10 days of feeding. The IRT stated that the toxic was the result of genetically modification techniques and not a specific case of the particular potato. They claimed the process of making GMO caused it to be toxic and thus all GMOs were highly risk for toxicity. Next is the test of time, GMOs and their effect on our offspring. Although scientists have been able to demonstrate that GMOs are not toxic to animals that eat them, as described above and elsewhere, what about the side effect being passed on to our next generation? To discern whether GMO crops affected fertility or embryos during the gestation, a group of South Dakota State University again turned to study on rats. In this case, the rats were eating a type of GMO cone, more commonly known as BT cone and BT cone. BT stands for Bacillus thuringiensis, a microbe that produces instantly endotoxin and has been used as a topical pesticide against insect since 1961. To allow cone to directly generate this endotoxin, scientists introduced a gene from BT into the genetical material of cone. So next is opinion on the issues. In my opinion on the issues, to prevent causing unintentional harm to human health and the environment, taking everything into account, GM crops are living there and migrate and extending globally. In this regard, unambiguous signals should be issued to biotech firms to proceed with precaution in order to prevent causing unintentional harm to human health and the environment. Consumers are widely regret to have the right to demand mandated labeling of GM foods products, independent testing for safety and environmental implications, and accountability for any damage caused by GM crops. Next is they might contribute to a rise in allergic reactions. Studies have been shown that food-related allergic reaction in kids have rise from 3% to 5% in last decades. Even though there is no proof supporting the notation that GMOs can cause a rise in allergies, the thought is that it may happen as stuck in people's mind is causing them to keep away from genetically modified food. Moreover, genetic food can propagate allergic reactions from different foods. So that's all for the opinion for the issues. So these are the references I used for the presentation, and that's all from me. Thank you so much.